Hi everybody, this is Miss Cox trying out the movie reviews challenge, and honestly this can be a little tricky. So first off, it's asking us to kind of set up the movies and the movie review. So the title's there and then the review is underneath. So I am actually going to change this because before we do anything else, I don't like Puff the Magic Dragon, so I'm going to call it worst movie ever. So now, just to make it more fun, now we want to display the review. So underneath where we're putting the title, we're going to display the review, and since the review is the review and not the title, we're going to make it a little smaller. So I'm going to go with size 15, text, and then the message is going to be movies, bracket, because remember this is our array, and this is the first item in the array. This first object here is the first item in the array. That's where this gets confusing. So, and it's not 1, remember. The first thing in an array is always 0. So 0, point, and the item in this object we want is the review. Now, that's a lot of stuff. Now I've got the text that I need. I need the X and the Y position. Before we used 200, 50, so I'm going to go 200, 100 because I want it to be a little lower. Bam, done. Now, the next thing here is we're going to add another movie. If you take a look at this variable up here for movies, we're storing a bunch of different movies in this and movie reviews. So what's cool about this is we have our array, so this is basically a list of a bunch of different movies and reviews. And in each of the objects, and we just put the objects in brackets, we can create new movies. So here in our second bracket section here, so our second object, we're going to add a new movie. I'm going to call this one The Matrix because I love The Matrix. It's my favorite movie. I'm going to press comma. Remember to put a comma between your items in an array or in an object. And in this case, we're looking at arrays and objects. And then review. Let's put this one as best movie. I'll actually put the real best movie ever. Now, I have these two movies. I've done the first kind of couple steps. Now here's the tricky part. We're going to have to figure out how do you display them all. And this is tricky because if you look over here, there's a lot of stuff we have to do. That's because we're going to make a for loop to start. And the for loop is going to say, hey, do this the number of times as we have items in our movies array. So that's where this is tricky. We need to think about this. Right now there's 2 movies in the array, but we also want to set this up so that if a new movie's added, it will automatically display. So here's what we're going to do. For loop, parentheses, var, I'm just going to use I, because it seems like I is a popular one to use here. We're going to start I at 0. And I here is really just our counter. We're using I to kind of count up. So for I is equal to 0, so it starts at 0. Then in the middle, remember, we need to put our statement as to when this is happening. So we've said we're starting at 0, and we're going to have this continue until I is greater. Well, we'll say as long as I is less than what? Well, we want this to continue as long as I is less than the total number here of objects in our array. So to find out the number of items in an array, we have to find the array's length. And nicely, we're just going to put movies dot length. And remember, that's going to pull up how many terms there are in that array. So basically I'm saying you're going to count up until you reach the same amount of, well, and this is confusing because remember arrays start at 0. So we're going to count up. This expression will allow me to have it stop basically when there are no more items in the array. Last thing I need to do is tell it to increase the I. Now remember that we're increasing the I every time because the I is really just our counter. It's counting up the, the number of times. So now inside our for loop, here's what we want it to do. Well, a lot of this is just going to be moved. So we want it to do this fill, and we want it to do the center align and the text size. So I'm going to move that stuff in here. But here's the next tricky part. Instead of just having these items in here, and I'm going to move them in for now, we're going to need to change them. So here we've got the message, but remember we're going to be changing which one is printing. So instead of it being 0, we're going to make it I, because we're going to start I with 0 and then increase, so it'll move to the second item in our array. So instead of 0, I'm going to change it to I, and I'm going to change this one to I. Now, what's the problem? Well, it went through and it printed both the movie titles and both of the movie reviews, but it did them on top of each other. That's because this loop repeated, and my X and Y for these two things are the same. I didn't change the X and Y. So I need to tell the X and Y to change. So let's see. I'm going to say, let's say I want to use I. I want to use I to help me change this. If I look up here, it's suggesting keeping the 200 the same, but changing the Y. So if the Y is the same, so let's say Y starts at 50 for both of them, and then times, let's say we multiply, let's say we start at 50 and 100, and we're going to use I to help us multiply. And then, now we're cut off, so we better add something in on the bottom, because remember, I is 0 to start with, so this is 0, 0, which is Y being 0 does not help anybody. So I'm going to try adding 50 and 100. Now that's not good enough. These two are still kind of overlapping. So let me try adjusting. Let's see if this is my solution. So right now, I'm not increasing the amount enough here. And basically I just need to work out what I need to put here. If I did this, it's going to be 0. If I did this, it'll be 10. But now the problem is I really want this to be maybe 50 after. And maybe this is 100. Or this is 100. Oh, that's getting better. Okay. So sometimes it just takes some adjusting of these numbers to get exactly what you want. But in the end, the nice thing about this is if I add another object, so let's say I wanted to add another movie in here, separated by commas. I could add another movie called title Mulan, because I like Mulan too. Mulan, and review would be best Disney movie ever. And you'll see it'll automatically now pull in the next information. So that's basically how you do this. It's a little tricky, but what's awesome about this is that you're using an array of objects to do a bunch of stuff for you. So it's pretty fancy. Fancy, fancy. Thanks for watching.